Hello everyone, I'm here to present the video lectures on data integration tutorial, and the topic for today is transformations. So we are going to study the sorter transformation in this integration using the Informatica Power Center. And as you can see, currently my a Power Center repository is open in front of you, and this is the folder, training folder, which I'm going to use. In this, I'm going to import the data, unload the data, and then create the mapping. So the data which I'm going to use in my practical today is the EMP underscore data. Now this data has been created in the notepad file, and in this data, as you can see, I'm having 8 columns. So total there are 8 columns, right? And there are 7 rows. In some of the rows, some values are missing, assuming it to be a null value. So as you can see here, my age is missing. In the last row, I'm having my Jan salary and Feb salary is missing. So this particular data has been kept empty by me. So it will be imported as a null value. So let's now use this data and start with the practical. So the transformation which I'm going to do today is the sorter transformation. So the training is the folder. Now let's now create a mapping. We are going to go to the designer window. So this is my designer window. So I've opened all the designer window in front of me. So these are the folders which are currently being opened. Let me just close that. So this is my training. Now the very first step in this practical is to import the source on the target. I need to import the source file and I need to import the target file. So for that, to import the source file, I need to open the source analyzer. So I'll just go to the tools, keeping my folder as an current app folder, active folder. I'll go to tools, pick up the source analyzer. So you can see the source analyzer window is open. I'll go to sources and click the option called as import from file. So this will help me out to import the source files in the uh, developer client. So I'll just go to my desktop. Here I can find all the files. So the file is emp underscore data. Okay. Now here I'm going to import the first row as my column names. So I click on this, check this option, I click on next. Here I'll keep my delimiter as a comma and my text qualifier as a no quotes, and I click on next. Here I can change the precision and the data types of any of the column which I want to. Let's keep it as it is and click on finish. So you can see your source has been imported in the source analyzer and it is visible under the source folder. If I expand this, you can see the source analyzer is emp underscore data is available. Now the same way I have to import the targets. So currently I can see in the target there is nothing, it's empty. Now the next step is to import the target. So for that I'll go to tools and I say target designer. So I have a target designer window in front of me. I'll go to targets and select the import from file option. The file which I'm going to import in the target designer is the same file which I imported in the source analyzer. So from the desktop, I'm going to choose my underscore data. There is no need to select a different file. For the source and the target, it would be the same file. Now coach, next and finish. So your source and target are now available to me. After importing the source and the target, the next step is to create a mapping between the source and the target. So for that, I need an option called as mapping designer. I have the shortcuts available with me: source analyzer, target designer, transformation developer, Mapplet Designer, and the last option is Mapping Designer. So I go to Mapping Designer, and here I'm going to create the mapping. Now while creating the Mapping Designer, the very first step is to create a new mapping. So for that, I'll go to Mappings and click on Create. I'll write the name of my mapping. So union underscore map is the name of my mapping. I click on OK. So you can see currently the mapping is union underscore map. Now I'm going to create the mapping for the same. Now to create a mapping, I need a source and the target. So from the source, I'm going to import the emp underscore data, drag and drop to the mapping designer. So you can see it's here. And you can see here that when I drag and drop the mapping on the mapping designer, or I say when I drag and drop the source on the mapping designer, I have an extra option, or I call this as an extra bar in front of me, which is called as your source qualifier. Now the task of source qualifier is to understand the data types of the attributes which are taken from the source, and after standardizing the attributes, move it to the target. So as you can see, the ID in the source was number, but now in the qualifier, it has been converted into decimal. Now, why this has done? This has been done to ensure that there is a standardization between multiple source and multiple targets, because all the softwares does not support same data types. So a standard list of data types has been maintained by my source qualifier so as to ensure that this source can be sent to multiple targets at the same time. So standard data types are being done in the source qualifier. Next is to bring your target. So I go to targets, bring my emp underscore data in the target. So it is done. You can see here. Now next task is to bring the transformation. So the transformation which I'm going to use here is the sorter transformation. Now what is the use of sort transformation? The task of sort transformation is to sort the data which is coming from the source, and after sorting it has to be transferred to the target. So the data transformation which I'm going to use is the sort transformation. This is the bar which shows you the icons of all the transformations available. So from here I can find the sort transformation. So this is the sort transformation with the icon AZ. So A to Z we can say alphabetical order, ascending order, and Z to A is the descending order. So I'll use the sort transformation. So I just click on this and double click on my gray screen, which gives you the sort transformation. Now after having the option of sort transformation, my next task is to configure the sorter transformation. So for that, what I need to do is, for the very first method, you need to drag and drop all the columns from the source qualifier to the sort transformation. So for this, I'll just select all the attributes. I'll just press my shift key, and keeping the shift key pressed, I'll just use my down arrow to select all the ports. Now after selecting all the ports, I'll keep my left mouse pressed and drag all the columns to the transformation. So you can see they are dragged properly in a sequential manner. Now I'll configure my sort transformation. So I'll just right click on edit. So here I'll go to my ports, and you can see all the ports are visible on my sort transformation. Now I need to choose the column on the basis of which I want to arrange the data or sort the data. So here, as I can have multiple columns, I am going to sort the data based on the column called as age. So age is a column here, and based on the age, I'm going to sort the data. So if I look into my data, the source file, so this is your source file. In this file, age column is having data in a random manner. So 28, 24, and then you are having null value, null value, and then you have 28, then 29, 22, 25. So the data of the age column is a random data in a random order. Now I want the data in my target should be sorted according to the age column. So the topmost age should come at the top and the bottom lowest age should come at the bottom, right? So with this, now I'll just sort by age. Now to sort by age, in front of the age column, I have an option called as key. I have an input port, I have the output port, and there's a port called as key. Now key port is a port which enables you to check that column on the basis of which you want to perform the sorting. So I'll just select this key and change the direction. So if you want to sort in the ascending order, you can keep it as ascending. If you want to keep it as descending, you can just change it to descending. Just click it and you'll get the drag option. So you have the descending and click on apply and then click on OK. So this transformation is configured now. Next is to just send this changes made in the transformation to the target. So I'll just select again all the attributes of my sort transformation and drag and drop it to the target. Now one thing I need to see it very carefully is that when I am dragging and dropping to the target transformation, all the columns must be selected and the drop should be done on the ID column. Drop should be done on the ID column. Now when you drop it on the ID column, all the subsequent this columns will be connected accordingly and there will be no discrepancy in the same. So they are in a sorted manner. So you can see all are sorted in a very good manner by in the order wise. So the sorting is done. Now next is to save it. So I press Ctrl S to save my mapping, and then you can see on the bottom mapping union map is valid. This says that your mapping does not contain any kind of errors, and this can be used to create a workflow. Now my next task is to create a workflow. So what's a workflow? Workflow is the actual implementation of the mapping which you have created. See, mapping is just the configuration of the columns which you have done. The actual sending the data from the source to target will be done only via workflow. Now, after creating the mapping, the next step is to execute this mapping via workflow. So now we are going to create the workflow to run the mapping which we have just created right now. Now to create a workflow, I'll choose the option called as W here. So workflow manager. So you can see workflow manager is opening in front of us. Okay. And then I'll just close all the subsequent folders which are opened. Yeah. So I'm having training. Now the current active window in front of me is workflow designer. Now on this workflow designer, I'm going to create the workflow. Now the very first step is to go to workflows and click on create. Now sometimes what happens when you open this workflow manager, the window which is available to you in front of is task developer. You are not going to create the workflow in the task developer. Workflow will always be created in the workflow designer. So for that we can go to tools and select the workflow designer. So the current window is workflow designer. Now I'll go to workflows to create a new workflow. I'll click on create and here I give a name to my workflow. So union underscore workflow is the name of my workflow. I click on OK. Right. Now next is to create a session. After creating the workflow, there will be a start button in front of you which shows the workflow is created now. Now we need to create a session, and in the session we are going to use the mapping which we just created right now on the designer window. So just click on task and click on create. So you have a session active. give a name to our session, union underscore session is the name of my session. I click on create. It will ask you to choose the mapping which you want to use in this session, in this workflow. So I say union underscore map is just mapping which I just created. Okay. And I click on done. So your session has overlapped with the start. So just keep it aside. Now next task is to link the start and the session window. So for that, go to task and use the option link task. Select it and just connect them together. So it's done. Right now my next task is to configure this session. Now configuring, I mean that giving the source directory and the target directory. Now from where the data has to be taken and on which data this mapping will be implemented and where the output or the target will be stored. So for that I need to configure my session. I'll just right click on the session, and click on edit. So you get the window in front of you, edit task. Now go to mapping. Now on this mapping, we are having the sources, targets and the transformations. Transformation shows you the transformation which I just created. Sources show you the source file and the target shows you the target file. So I need to configure both the source and the target. So I go to sources and here I'm having three options: reader, connection and properties. I'll keep my reader and the connection as it is. I'll just configure the properties. Now on the properties, I'm having a source file directory. Now here source file directory is the directory from where the source file needs to be taken up by the workflow manager and execute the mapping on that. So my source file directory in this case will be the folder lying in this path. So the path is C Informatica 10.1.0 server infra shared source files. Now this is the path under which my files are present. So I'll just copy this path and I just paste this to open my source file directory and put a / in between that. Now the file name is emp underscore data.txt. Please ensure the file name should be the same file which is present in the source files folder and the target. Now let's configure the target. Keep my writer and the connection as it is. Come to properties. Here I'm going to mention the output file directory. So I'll just grab this, the previous method, and here I'm going to give my path as the C Informatica 10.1.0 server infra shared TGT files. I'll just show you this file also, this folder also. So I'll just paste it and here I'm going to give the output file name. Now while giving the output file name, we should ensure one thing, that the file name should have an extension .txt. So let's keep it as union underscore out .txt, right? So the output file name is union underscore out.txt and the source file name is emp underscore data.txt. I just click on apply and click on OK. Now let's see where these folders are basically. So this is the folder placed in my server where these folders are kept. This is currently your infra shared. Here I am having two folders, source files and target files. So source files, when I open this, I'm having a file called emp underscore data. This is the file emp underscore data which contains this data into it, which I'm going to use in my practical for sorting the data. And if I go to my TGT files, so this is the folder, it's currently empty. This is a place where my output will be stored. Now let's come back to the practical workflow and run the workflow. Now after configuring, please press the Ctrl S button to save it, the workflow. So you can see workflow union underscore work is a valid workflow. Now let's run this. So I just on the white screen, right click and click on start workflow. So when I click this, it is going to open my monitor, workflow monitor. So you can see my workflow monitor is open and here is the under the training. I have a session union underscore workflow, right? So union underscore workflow, and this is a session, union underscore session. Both the status of both of them are succeeded. That means my practical was implemented without any kind of error, and in the target directory there should be one file with the name union underscore out, which contains the data in a sorted manner by age. So let's open that. Go to tgt files. So you can see under target files we have a having file called as union underscore out. Let's open it up. So this is the file. Now here, if I just understand the output, this is my age column. Now in the very first row for ID 103, age column is null, and the sorting was done in the descending order. So null is always having the highest priority in my set of rows. So null comes at the top when I am sorting the data in the descending order. Then I'm having 29, and then I'm having 28. Again I'm having 28. Then 25, 24 and 22. Now one thing I need to understand here is that when each column is having two similar values, that is 28 and 28, in that case sorting will be done on first come first basis. So whichever row containing 28 is coming at the top will be considered as the topmost in the higher priority. So same values will be considered by the first come first serve priority basis, right? So this is a sorting being done. Now this was all the practical about sorter transformation. Now I'll just go back to my designer and tell you one more thing here. So when I click on the transformation, I'll just right click and click on edit and click on ports. So these are the ports, age, and then your descending order. I'll go to properties here. Now on the properties, we are having multiple options. So I'm having an option called as null treated low. So what is the meaning of null treated low? By default, the null value is always considered as the highest value. That is why in my output it is coming at the top. Now if I want it should be considered as the lowest value, I'll just check this box and re-implement my practical again with the expectation that here the null will be coming at the bottom. So by default it is at the top in the descending order. When I check this option, it will be coming at the bottom, right? Now this is one such option available to us. The second feature is we are having a feature of called distinct. Now what is a distinct here? Distinct is going to, if I check this distinct box, it is going to remove the duplicate values from the source, duplicate rows from the source, and only pass the distinct rows in the target. So all the duplicate rows will be removed in the source qualifier, and only the different rows, the distinct values is going to be passed in the target. So this feature will enable the removal of redundancy in your outputs. So this is all with about the sorter transformation. If anybody is having any kind of doubt, they can ask us via the chat window. Thank you. Have a good day and a bright day. Thanks a lot.